He was starving, but he would not let go. Atlas clung to the rusted crate, his white fur matted with mud and rain, ribs visible beneath a coat once bright and proud. Gunnery Sergeant Isaiah Reed approached slowly, boots squelching through puddles on the concrete floor of the abandoned Savannah warehouse, the smell of salt and rust thick in the air, and he felt the weight of years in every cautious glance the dog gave him. The crate shivered slightly, a faint scratching echoing from within, and Atlas's amber eyes locked onto Isaiah, pleading silently, a language older than words, one of trust and unspoken loyalty. Isaiah knelt carefully, keeping his hands low, tone soft yet commanding. "Easy, boy. We're not going to hurt anything inside." The dog tilted his head, body tense, claws digging slightly into the concrete, as if holding a secret no one else could see. The warehouse smelled of wet metal and mold, water dripping from the corrugated roof into the puddles on the floor, each drop a rhythmic percussion that echoed around the empty space. Isaiah's flashlight beam caught a glint on the crate's edge, the rust catching the light like tiny stars, and he realized the metal was weak in places, warped from years of neglect. The dog's breathing was shallow enough to remind Isaiah of the stakes, of all the animals lost to storms, neglect, and human absence. Isaiah shifted his weight, letting the flashlight beam move slowly across the crate, each inch revealing peeling paint, flaking rust, and tiny scratches that told stories of persistent life, resilience, and quiet defiance. A small noise, almost a whimper, came from inside, and Atlas's body stiffened, standing just low enough to block anyone from peering further. Isaiah held his hand up, whispering, "I see it, Atlas. I see you've been protecting something." The dog's tail twitched once, a subtle acknowledgement, then rested heavily on the ground, as if the act of waiting had worn him thin, yet his eyes never left Isaiah's face. The smell of wet fur, damp concrete, and rain-slicked metal formed a tapestry of survival around them, each sense alert, each movement deliberate, each heartbeat echoing the bond between a Marine and a dog who had endured, suffered, and waited. Isaiah placed a hand gently on Atlas's shoulder, feeling the pulse, the tension, the life beneath, and whispered again, "We're going to get this safe." Atlas's ears flicked, nose twitching, yet he did not move from the crate. He only watched, and in that silent vigilance, Isaiah understood the story of the dog's loyalty, of the small miracle waiting within the rusted wood, the quiet proof that even in despair, guardianship and courage persisted, a bond unspoken but deeply understood. Isaiah Reed moved cautiously, lifting the crate lid slightly with one gloved hand, while keeping the other pressed gently on Atlas's broad shoulders. The white German shepherd shifted only an inch, eyes never leaving the faint shadow moving inside, amber orbs glinting in the dim light, nostrils flaring as he caught scents of damp fur and straw, rainwater still clinging to his matted coat. The warehouse smelled of wet metal, rust, and earth, every sound echoing. The drip of water from the corrugated roof, the faint scrape of the crate's interior, Atlas's shallow, measured breaths. Isaiah adjusted his flashlight, letting the beam sweep slowly across the wooden floor, catching splintered boards and puddles, illuminating Atlas's tense, protective stance and the carefully hoarded space within the crate. He whispered softly, "I see it, Atlas. You're guarding something precious," voice steady but low, carrying calm authority through the space. The dog's tail flicked once, a subtle acknowledgement, then rested heavily as if the effort of vigilance had worn him thin. Isaiah reached in, lifting the edge of the cloth covering the contents, revealing tiny shapes huddled together, fur damp but alive, eyes blinking slowly, the faint whimpers forming a fragile chorus. Atlas leaned slightly forward, body quivering, then pressed down again as if signaling Isaiah to be careful, his amber gaze communicating trust and caution simultaneously. Isaiah's hands moved deliberately, lifting each puppy gently, checking warmth, pressing soft blankets around them, while Atlas hovered close, head low, ears perked, every muscle taut with protective instinct. The subtle drip of water, distant rumble of storm-cleared clouds outside, and faint squeaks from the puppies filled the space, a symphony of life reclaimed. Isaiah exhaled slowly, feeling the tension in Atlas's body ease fractionally, the dog's chest rising and falling with steadier breaths as the puppies were placed safely on a dry, folded tarp. Atlas's eyes followed every motion, yet for the first time he lowered his stance, leaning into Isaiah's hand, a quiet concession to trust. The small space seemed suspended in time, rain-slicked floor, rusted beams, and the smell of damp fur and wet blankets forming a cocoon of care, vigilance, and fragile relief. Isaiah murmured, recounting each puppy's condition and the dog's bravery, letting Atlas absorb the reassurance, while the warehouse, previously cold and echoing, now seemed filled with warmth, hope, and the quiet miracle of survival, a testament to loyalty, courage, and the unspoken bond between a Marine and a dog who had endured the storm and protected life against all odds. Isaiah kept his hand on Atlas while the young Marines gathered around the crate, each of them suddenly quieter than before, as if the warehouse itself had become a chapel made of rust and rain. 3 puppies lay bundled on the dry tarp, their tiny bodies shifting beneath the folds of an old Marine jacket Isaiah had found inside the crate. The fabric was faded green, stiff in places from age and damp air, but the eagle, globe, and anchor patch still held its shape on the sleeve. Atlas saw Isaiah looking at it, and let out a soft breath, not quite a whine, not quite a sigh. Isaiah looked closer. Beneath the jacket, tucked carefully against the side of the crate, was a laminated photograph sealed in a scratched plastic sleeve. He lifted it slowly, wiping mud from the corner with his thumb. A young Marine stood smiling in the picture, his arm around a woman with tired eyes and a gentle face. In front of them stood a little girl with braids, one hand resting proudly on the head of a white German shepherd who looked stronger than, brighter than, unmistakably Atlas. Isaiah felt the air go still around him. On the back of the photograph, written in faded black marker, were 3 names: Corporal Daniel Mercer, Anna Mercer, Maddie, and Atlas. One of the Marines behind him whispered, "Sergeant, there is a tag." Isaiah turned his flashlight lower. Hanging from the old collar beneath Atlas's thick, dirty fur was a worn military dog tag, dulled by time. The chain twisted but intact. Isaiah eased it forward with careful fingers. The name Daniel Mercer caught the light. For a moment, the rain outside seemed farther away, the dripping roof softer, the whole world narrowed to a dog who had stayed beside a crate because everything he loved had once been connected to it. Atlas leaned into Isaiah's shoulder, trembling from hunger and exhaustion, yet still watching the puppies as if his own rest did not matter until theirs was certain. Isaiah swallowed hard. Years in uniform had taught him how to stand steady in front of others. But this was different. This was not duty written on paper. This was duty carried in fur, bone, memory, and a heart that refused to abandon the small lives left in his care. "You knew," Isaiah murmured. "You knew they mattered." Atlas blinked slowly, then lowered his head until his nose nearly touched the closest puppy. The puppy stirred beneath the jacket, a small paw pressing against the fabric, and Atlas's tail moved once across the wet concrete. Isaiah folded the photograph into his inner pocket, beside the dog tag, then looked toward the open warehouse door where morning light pushed through gray storm clouds over the Savannah port. "Load the puppies carefully," he said, his voice low, "and bring him with me." Atlas looked up at him then, not rescued yet, not healed yet, but no longer alone. The morning light streamed weakly through the high windows of the abandoned warehouse as Isaiah carefully lifted Atlas onto a folded tarp in the back of the truck, the white German shepherd trembling slightly but alert, eyes fixed on the puppies nestled safely in the old Marine jacket. The smell of damp fur and wet concrete lingered, mingling with faint traces of rust from the crate and the sharp scent of rain still clinging to the metal roof. Isaiah wrapped the puppies in dry blankets while Atlas shifted his weight to stay close, body tense, ears flicking toward every small sound of movement outside and the soft squeaks from the crate. The young Marines moved quietly, following Isaiah's lead, passing towels and additional blankets without making sudden movements that might startle Atlas, whose amber eyes followed every gesture, every footstep. The engine of the truck hummed softly beneath them, a low, steady presence that contrasted with the uncertainty in Atlas's posture, and Isaiah murmured reassurance, his voice a calm anchor, repeating, It is safe now, Atlas. You've done your duty. The white fur of the German shepherd glimmered faintly under the morning light, a subtle contrast to the damp darkness of the warehouse behind them, emphasizing both vulnerability and strength. Atlas leaned slightly against Isaiah's side, still watchful, still protective, but willing to allow the human to guide the delicate process of removing the puppies safely. The wet roads outside reflected streaks of early sunlight, puddles rippling as tires rolled over them, and Isaiah kept his hand steady as he checked each pup, noting their warmth, breathing, and signs of dehydration, careful to handle them with both urgency and tenderness. Atlas shifted again, placing a paw gently on one of the blankets, as if to reassure the puppies, while Isaiah adjusted the tarp to create a secure, dry space, speaking softly to maintain the dog's trust. Each breath, each movement, each glance exchanged between Marine and dog carried a silent understanding that the crisis of the night was behind them, but that the bond forged through vigilance, patience, and shared responsibility was only beginning to deepen. Outside, the remnants of the storm reflected across the Savannah port, the streets glistening, the distant water lapping quietly, a reminder of both the peril they had navigated and the calm that had finally been earned. Isaiah looked down at Atlas, amber eyes meeting brown, and whispered again, "You are not alone. They are safe, and so are you." The German shepherd blinked slowly, body relaxing fractionally, a small signal of trust and relief, and Isaiah felt the weight of hours, the weight of vigilance, lift slightly from his shoulders as the truck slowly pulled away from the warehouse, carrying hope, life, and the quiet miracles they had preserved through the long, rain-soaked night. The ride to the veterinary clinic near the Savannah port felt longer than the map said it should. Isaiah sat in the back of the truck with Atlas and the 3 puppies, one hand steady on the German shepherd's shoulder, the other resting near the folded jacket where the little ones slept in uneven breaths. The road passed under them in wet, broken rhythms, tires hissing through shallow puddles, the city still waking beneath a sky the color of damp steel. Atlas kept his head low, but his eyes never left the bundle. Hunger had hollowed his frame, and exhaustion had pulled at every muscle, yet the moment one puppy stirred, his ears rose. Isaiah noticed and moved the jacket closer. "They are right here," he said softly. "You kept them close. I will keep them close now." Atlas blinked, slow and heavy, as if understanding required the last of his strength. Corporal Dean Miller sat near the rear door, holding a towel over a small leak where rainwater slipped through the truck seam. No one joked. No one filled the silence. The usual Marine banter had been replaced by the tiny sounds of life beneath wool, the faint squeak of a puppy, the whisper of Atlas breathing, the quiet scrape of Isaiah's thumb moving across the worn dog tag in his pocket. Daniel Mercer. The name kept returning like a bell struck far away. Isaiah had known Marines whose belongings outlived them, boots tucked under beds, letters folded into footlockers, photographs placed in wallets and never removed. But he had never held a promise this warm, this fragile, this alive. When the clinic appeared ahead, a low brick building with a green awning and porch lights glowing against the gray morning, Atlas tried to lift himself. His front paws slipped slightly on the tarp. Isaiah caught him before fear could enter the movement. "Easy," he whispered. "No more standing guard today." Inside, the clinic smelled of clean towels, cedar chips, and warm air. A veterinarian named Dr. Caroline Hayes met them at the door with a calm face and sleeves already rolled. Her eyes moved from the puppies to Atlas, and her expression softened into something close to respect. "He stayed with them?" she asked. Isaiah nodded. Dr. Hayes knelt, letting Atlas smell her hand before touching him. The dog watched her, then looked to Isaiah for permission. That look reached deeper than words. Isaiah placed his palm between Atlas's ears. "She is here to help." Only then did Atlas lower his head. As the puppies were carried to a heated blanket and Atlas was guided onto a padded mat, the old Marine jacket opened slightly, revealing a stitched name inside the collar. Mercer. Isaiah saw it, and so did Dr. Hayes. For a moment, the room fell still again, not with fear, but with the strange grace of finding proof that love had left a trail. Dr. Caroline Hayes worked with the quiet precision of someone who understood that frightened animals listen to everything, even the silence between footsteps. She checked the puppies first, one by one, placing each small body on the heated blanket beneath a soft lamp, while Atlas watched from his padded mat with his head raised and his ears forward. The puppies made tiny sounds as they warmed, fragile and uneven, but alive. Every time one of them shifted, Atlas tried to rise. Every time, Isaiah placed a steady hand along his shoulder and whispered, "They are still here." It became a rhythm between them. A pup breathed. Atlas tensed. Isaiah reassured him. The dog settled. Dr. Hayes glanced over more than once, her expression carrying the kind of respect usually reserved for old soldiers and grieving mothers. When she examined Atlas, she moved slowly, letting him smell each instrument, each towel, each bowl of water before it came near him. His body was tired, his paws sore from standing on damp concrete, his ribs too easy to feel beneath the heavy white fur, but his heart was strong. That was what she said after listening through her stethoscope. Strong. Isaiah held on to that word. It sat in the room like a candle that refused to go out. Dr. Hayes prepared a small meal and placed it in front of Atlas. The dog sniffed it, then looked past the bowl toward the puppies. He would not eat. Isaiah felt the ache of that choice before anyone explained it. "He is waiting for them," Dr. Hayes said softly. Isaiah picked up one puppy wrapped in a towel and held it close enough for Atlas to see, close enough for him to smell the small breath coming from its nose. Then he nodded toward the bowl. "They are safe," he said. "Now you eat." Atlas stared at him for a long moment, measuring the promise. Then, slowly, almost reluctantly, he lowered his head and took the first bite. No one in the room spoke. The heater hummed. Rainwater dripped from the Marine's boots onto the tile. A clock ticked above the door. Isaiah watched Atlas eat in careful, exhausted mouthfuls, and something inside him loosened, something he had carried since the day he missed a signal in a collapsed supply shed years before. Back then, he had told himself that not every life could be reached in time. Maybe that was true. But today, this dog had reached back. This dog had stayed. This dog had guarded 3 tiny lives and a name stitched into a jacket until somebody finally understood. Dr. Hayes touched the old Mercer jacket and looked at Isaiah. "There is a story here," she said. Isaiah nodded, eyes still on Atlas. "Then we are going to finish it right." Isaiah stood near the clinic window, sunlight spilling across the floor in golden streaks that illuminated Atlas's white coat as he stretched out slowly beside the 3 puppies nestled in the folded Marine jacket. The air smelled faintly of cedar, warm blankets, and the damp remnants of a Savannah storm, carrying a quiet serenity that contrasted sharply with the tension of the previous night. Atlas shifted slightly, ears flicking, tail brushing lightly against the floor, his amber eyes fixed on Isaiah as if to ensure that the world beyond the padded mat was safe. Isaiah's hands rested lightly on Atlas's shoulders, fingers tracing the contours of muscle still tight from exhaustion, and he murmured quietly, recounting the plan to reunite the dog with the little ones and eventually deliver them to the family of the fallen Marine. The puppies stirred, soft whimpers escaping as they adjusted to the warmth, and Atlas leaned a fraction closer, nuzzling the blanket, protective yet calming. Isaiah adjusted a small towel around the puppies, tucking it so their little bodies were snug, observing how Atlas's gaze never left the crate where the jacket had been folded just moments before. Outside, the faint hum of the city awakened, tires splashing in puddles and the distant call of gulls over the port carrying a subtle rhythm that matched the quiet heartbeat of the room. Dr. Caroline Hayes moved softly around them, checking temperatures and murmuring reassurances to Atlas as she worked, careful to maintain his trust, her movements slow, deliberate, unthreatening. Each tiny sound, the shuffle of blankets, the soft sigh of a pup, the almost imperceptible click of Atlas's claws, formed a cadence of vigilance and care. Isaiah felt the weight of the day's events settle in his chest, the relief that Atlas had protected and survived mingling with pride and a quiet reverence. The sunlight shifted, illuminating the dust particles in the warm air, each one dancing above Atlas and the puppies, a visual testament to life continuing despite storm and fear. Isaiah whispered again, "You did well, Atlas. They are safe." Atlas blinked slowly, lowering his head briefly, before lifting it again, ears alert, acknowledging both the words and the unspoken understanding between Marine and dog. A connection forged through night-long vigilance, and now cemented in quiet triumph and the first breaths of morning calm. By noon, the clinic had settled into a gentle quiet, the kind that comes after fear has finally stepped outside and closed the door behind it. Atlas lay beside the heated blanket with the 3 puppies tucked close to the old Marine jacket, his head resting low but his eyes open, watching every breath they took. Isaiah sat on the floor near him, back against the wall, one knee bent, his field jacket still damp at the cuffs, his face calm in the way Marines learn to be calm when emotion has nowhere safe to go. Dr. Caroline Hayes stood at her desk with the photograph, the dog tag, and the stitched jacket spread carefully across a towel, treating each piece like evidence of love rather than proof of loss. She had already made 2 calls, one to a county records office, one to an old rescue coordinator near the port. The answers came slowly, but they came. Corporal Daniel Mercer had served with a coastal support unit during hurricane relief years earlier. After his death, his wife and daughter had left Savannah, not because they wanted to forget, but because grief had turned every street into a reminder. Atlas had been placed temporarily with a local animal facility while paperwork was sorted. Then the storm season came again. Buildings changed hands. Records were misplaced. Promises became names in boxes nobody opened. Isaiah listened without interrupting, his hand moving once across Atlas's shoulder. The dog did not understand the words, but he understood the weight in the room. When Dr. Hayes said the name Maddie Mercer, Atlas lifted his head. Not sharply, not dramatically, just enough to make everyone notice. Isaiah looked from the dog to the photograph, to the little girl smiling with her hand on Atlas's neck. He remembers her, he said. Dr. Hayes nodded slowly. Some dogs remember the shape of a life better than people do. She found a number through a veteran's family network, then paused before dialing, giving Isaiah the choice with her eyes. He looked at Atlas. The German shepherd's gaze stayed fixed on the jacket, on the puppies, on the old picture that smelled faintly of plastic, dust, and home. Isaiah nodded. The phone rang 3 times. Then a woman answered from Charleston, her voice cautious but kind. Dr. Hayes introduced herself, explained the photograph, the tag, the white shepherd, the puppies found beneath Daniel Mercer's jacket. Silence followed. Then, in the background, a younger voice asked, "Aunt Claire, what is it?" Dr. Hayes looked at Isaiah. Isaiah looked at Atlas. The dog's ears rose at that voice, as if a door had opened somewhere inside him. And across miles of wet highway and years of waiting, the past began to answer. The phone conversation continued, soft voices on the line, the kind that carry wonder and disbelief at the same time, as Maddie Mercer confirmed her identity and asked about the dog, the puppies, the jacket, and the photograph. Isaiah held Atlas close, feeling the tension in the German shepherd ease fractionally, tail sweeping once across the padded floor as though sensing the importance of this connection. Outside, light poured through the clinic windows, the sun warm against the tile and walls, contrasting with the damp Savannah morning from hours ago. Each puppy wriggled slightly, stirring the blanket, and Atlas leaned forward, nose close, sniffing each one, checking for signs of comfort, for proof that they were indeed safe. Isaiah repeated the story quietly to Maddie, voice calm, deliberate, painting the scene of the warehouse, the rain, the crate, the long vigil Atlas had kept while the puppies survived. Atlas's ears twitched at every inflection, his amber gaze tracking Isaiah's movements, the shifting blankets, the small shifts in the puppy's breathing. Maddie's voice broke once, a soft intake of air, and Isaiah allowed the moment to expand, letting Atlas sense the emotion, understand the relief, and acknowledge the reunion that was just beginning. The dog nudged a pup gently with his nose, then settled, eyes still fixed on Isaiah, as though seeking reassurance that the connection would hold. Outside the clinic, city sounds continued, cars and distant horns muted by the thick walls, while inside, the room was filled with the delicate harmonics of life being restored. Small whimpers, soft breathing, the faint rustle of blankets, Atlas's careful, deliberate adjustments, and the slow, steady rhythm of Isaiah's own heartbeat syncing with the dog's. Maddie described the home she had shared with her aunt since leaving Savannah, the empty space in her memory that Atlas and the puppies would now begin to fill, and Atlas responded subtly, lifting his head, moving closer to the jacket, a soft exhale as though understanding that the humans could be trusted, that they would honor his vigil. Isaiah guided the conversation, ensuring Atlas never felt crowded, never lost control, keeping his hand along the dog's shoulder, thumb brushing the fur in a quiet, repeated promise. The puppies shifted in their sleep, a paw, a small whine, a tiny snuffle, and Atlas leaned a fraction forward, chest low, ears alert, the careful balance of protection and recognition unfolding naturally. Maddie asked about the dog tag, and Isaiah lifted it, letting the soft light glint along the metal, the engraving of Daniel Mercer a subtle, enduring echo of a family bond long deferred but now affirmed. Atlas exhaled slowly, settling more fully, eyes flicking once toward Maddie, then returning to Isaiah's hand, and in that simple gesture, the unspoken communication was complete. Trust, relief, and the quiet acknowledgement that the story was only beginning to unfold in safety, in warmth, and with hearts now aligned across miles, time, and memory. By mid-afternoon, the rain had finally left Savannah, and the clinic windows glowed with soft southern light. Isaiah sat beside Atlas while Dr. Caroline Hayes prepared a recovery plan for the 3 puppies, writing each note with careful patience, as if the paper itself needed gentleness. Maddie and Aunt Claire were already on the road from Charleston, their arrival still hours away, but the sound of Maddie's voice had changed the room. Atlas rested with his chin near the old Marine jacket, not sleeping exactly, but no longer fighting the weight of his own exhaustion. The puppies breathed in a warm pile beneath the lamp, small bodies rising and falling beneath the folds, safe enough now for silence to feel like peace. Isaiah took the photograph from the towel and studied it again. Corporal Daniel Mercer smiled in dress blues, young and proud, one hand resting on Atlas's back. Maddie, still a little girl in the picture, stood in front of them with a grin bright enough to make the whole image feel sunlit. Isaiah traced the edge of the plastic sleeve with his thumb and thought of all the things storms scatter: homes, records, names, promises, pieces of people who never meant to be lost. Then he looked at Atlas and understood something that did not need explaining. The dog had become the record. The dog had remembered when paper failed. Dr. Hayes came over quietly and knelt near the puppies. "They will need care for a while," she said, "but they have a real chance." Isaiah nodded. Atlas lifted his head at the doctor's voice, and she smiled gently. "You can rest now, old boy." Atlas blinked, then shifted closer to Isaiah instead, placing one paw lightly against the Marine's boot. The gesture was small, but it landed with weight. Isaiah had spent years carrying one regret in a locked room of his heart, telling himself that missed signals were part of disaster work, that not every sound could be found beneath wind and concrete and rain. Yet here was Atlas, worn thin by hunger and weather, proving that some signals keep calling until someone finally listens. Isaiah leaned down and whispered, "I heard you." Atlas's eyes softened. Outside, gulls moved over the port, their cries faint through the glass. Inside, the clinic held the warmth of towels, lamplight, and lives still beginning. Isaiah placed Daniel's dog tag beside the photograph, then folded his hands, not in ceremony, but in quiet respect. When Maddie arrived, she would receive more than a dog and 3 puppies. She would receive the last living witness to her father's tenderness, and the proof that love, once given faithfully, can outlast every storm. The clinic grew quieter as midday passed, the hum of the heater and the soft breaths of the puppies filling the air. Atlas lay near Isaiah, his white fur shining faintly under the soft light, eyes attentive but calm, watching each movement with steady patience. Isaiah moved slowly around the room, adjusting blankets, checking temperatures, speaking gently to both dog and pups in tones that carried warmth and reassurance. Dr. Hayes carefully monitored the tiny lives, her hands gentle, her movements deliberate, ensuring every puppy was stable and comfortable. Atlas shifted slightly, leaning toward the youngest pup, amber eyes scanning the room for any sudden change, any threat, his body taut with protective instinct even as exhaustion weighed on him. Isaiah leaned down, brushing his fingers across the dog's thick fur. "You are doing well," he whispered. Atlas exhaled slowly, a long, quiet sigh, and rested his head near Isaiah's hand, allowing himself a rare moment of stillness. Outside, sunlight shifted through the clinic windows, casting long, soft shadows across the tile floor, and the faint hum of distant traffic marked the steady passage of time. Isaiah pulled the dog tag from his pocket, holding it between thumb and forefinger, and spoke softly, recounting the night's events to the attentive Atlas, detailing how the German shepherd had guarded, protected, and ensured the safety of the 3 small lives now wrapped in warmth and care. Each palm movement, each careful sniff, each quiet blink of Atlas's eyes conveyed understanding, trust, and a bond strengthened through shared vigilance. The photograph of the Mercer family lay nearby, the little girl's smile captured in frozen time, the memory of the Marine father lingering in the fabric of the jacket and the etched metal of the dog tag. Isaiah felt a pulse of quiet relief as he watched Atlas lean gently toward the puppies, nudging one lightly with his nose, his ears flicking, his body relaxed just enough to signal the transition from guard to companion. Dr. Hayes noted every change, her voice soft and approving, while Isaiah maintained a steady hand on the dog's shoulder, silently confirming the promise that had been made the night before. Outside, clouds parted slightly, a pale blue sky emerging, the sound of gulls distant over the port, a gentle reminder of life moving forward. Atlas lowered his chest to the floor, eyes half closed, yet alert to every subtle motion, every soft breath, every small sound, embodying patience, resilience, and a quiet, unwavering loyalty that had been tested and had endured. Isaiah breathed slowly, matching the rhythm of the room, of the dog, of the tiny lives now thriving under his watch, feeling the culmination of long hours, storm-worn vigilance, and the fulfillment of promises kept. The space held the warmth of human touch, canine care, and new beginnings, a delicate balance of relief, trust, and the unspoken understanding that, through patience and steadfast love, the night's fears had been replaced with the calm certainty of survival and protection. Afternoon sunlight poured through the high clinic windows, casting long, soft beams across the tile floor and illuminating Atlas's white fur as he lay protectively beside the puppies. Isaiah adjusted a folded blanket beneath Atlas, his hand moving slowly, deliberately, tracing the lines of muscle beneath the thick coat, whispering, "It is safe now. You can rest." Atlas shifted slightly, eyes scanning the room, ears alert, but the tension had eased, replaced with a watchful calm. Dr. Caroline Hayes moved between the small incubator for the puppies and Atlas, monitoring temperatures, adjusting a towel here, checking a paw there, speaking softly to maintain the trust of both dog and infants. Each breath, each movement, each small sound, the soft squeak of a puppy, the rustle of blankets, Atlas's low, careful exhale, formed a rhythm of vigilance slowly giving way to relief. Isaiah looked down at the old Marine jacket, now draped over the warmest part of the blankets, noting the faded stitching of Mercer and the subtle creases from years of care and loss, a physical record of love and memory preserved through storm and neglect. Atlas leaned closer to the bundle, nuzzling a pup gently with his nose, then settling his chin near the blanket, body relaxed yet still poised with quiet authority. The clinic was still, save for the faint hum of the heater, the soft clicks of Dr. Hayes' instruments, and the distant sounds of Savannah life outside. A gull calling, a tire hissing in a puddle, wind moving the branches of trees past the window. Isaiah exhaled slowly, allowing himself to feel the weight of the day's events, storm, neglect, rescue, and the small, steady triumph of lives preserved. The dog tag lay on the counter beside the photograph of the Mercer family, a tangible link between past and present, memory and vigilance, promise and fulfillment. Atlas's ears flicked as Isaiah shifted, and he met the Marine's gaze with understanding that transcended words, amber eyes steady, full of patience, pride, and unspoken gratitude. Dr. Hayes adjusted the warmth beneath the puppies and smiled faintly, noting the calm that now reigned over the room. Outside, the fading light turned to gold, and then to a soft haze as clouds moved past, a reminder that time was passing gently now, lives once imperiled now secure. Isaiah touched Atlas's shoulder, feeling the strength beneath the tired exterior, the quiet endurance, and whispered, "You kept them safe." Atlas exhaled, long and deliberate, a sigh that carried relief and trust, chest rising and falling steadily beside the warmth of the puppies. Each creature in the room, Human, dog, and small infant lives shared the same space, the same moment, the same fragile, enduring sense of calm and safety, a testament to patience, loyalty, and the quiet miracle of survival after storms have passed. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tall clinic windows, casting golden light across Atlas and the puppies, highlighting the white fur of the German shepherd and the small, fragile forms of the infants nestled in the folds of the old marine jacket. Isaiah sat nearby, knees bent, watching the rhythm of life unfold in soft, deliberate movements. The gentle rise and fall of the puppy's breathing, the careful sniffing and nudging by Atlas, and the occasional shift of blankets that held warmth and safety for all. Dr. Caroline Hayes moved quietly, her hands steady, monitoring the puppy's temperatures and checking Atlas for signs of lingering stress, her voice soft as she whispered reassurances. Outside, Savannah seemed distant, the port's water glinting faintly in the sunlight, gulls calling from afar, the city slowly turning toward evening. Isaiah's eyes never left Atlas, seeing the endurance, the patience, the unwavering loyalty of a dog who had kept vigil through storm and neglect, who had safeguarded lives when no one else could. Each moment, each breath, each soft sound, the faint squeak of a shifting puppy, Atlas's careful exhale, the subtle rustle of blankets, formed a symphony of trust, hope, and quiet redemption. Isaiah adjusted a blanket around Atlas, whispering softly, "You did not let them down." The German shepherd responded with a small, deliberate nudge, chest low, ears alert but relaxed, amber eyes reflecting understanding and relief. Dr. Hayes noted the shift in Atlas's posture, the easing of tension across his shoulders and spine, and smiled faintly, knowing the dog had begun to let the weight of his vigilance lift. Isaiah glanced at the folded jacket, at the dog tag beside the photograph of the Mercer family, and felt the full arc of what had transpired. Danger, fear, dedication, survival, and now the restoration of trust and love across time and distance. Outside, shadows lengthened across the clinic floor as the sun lowered, the warm light embracing Atlas and the puppies, casting them in a gentle glow. Isaiah rested his hand on the dog's shoulder, feeling the pulse of life steady beneath the thick fur, hearing the faint rhythm of breaths matching one another, the puppies safe, Atlas attentive yet calm, and the room holding the quiet grace of reunion, protection, and the enduring promise that even in the wake of storms, love and loyalty can restore what was lost. Atlas lifted his head once, eyes meeting Isaiah's, then turned slightly toward the puppies, nudging them gently, a subtle, unspoken declaration that their guardian was finally at ease, the night's trials behind them, and the future open with warmth, care, and the quiet magic of a life saved through patience, courage, and unwavering devotion.